All right, so again, thank you. We're going to get through this, and we're going to get out on time today. Want to introduce Kevin Laws. Kevin is the Science Operations Officer at the National Weather Service in Birmingham. They're called SUES. These guys are the smartest guys in the building, all right? So, and what Kevin has done with the science in Birmingham is just remarkable. We are blessed to have, in my opinion, the best weather service office in the country, and I'm not saying that because he's standing there. I've said this before, but their work is exemplary, and they are partners in the weather enterprise, the private sector, NOAA, the government. I think we have a great relationship here. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Laws of the National Weather Service.
Thank you, thank you. It's a pleasure to be back with you. It's been a couple years. I want to go over a few things. Let me start here. Yes. Brian wanted to say, here is the actual website. Write this down. This gives you the field spotter guide that the National Weather Service provides for all basic storms. You could print it out. You could put it right in your car. They even make a little smaller version of it. You can put it right in your glove box and have it with you out in the field. So take a picture of this. Yeah, there you go. That's smart. Take a picture of this. Write this down. You will have it forever. We'll bring it back up and leave it on maybe during lunch. I'm going to kind of go off script a little bit. I like to talk about polygons, but I want to go off script and talk about some other things as well. Sitting in the audience, just kind of thinking about some things, and you know, there are defining moments in everybody's life. You know, you have children, you get married. For meteorologists, it's obviously April 27th. September 11th is another good one. There's certain things that you always remember where you were, and April 27th was one of those events for us. Changed everything. Changed the way that we viewed tornadoes. It changed the way we viewed how folks take action. And that's something I kind of want to talk about today. We had to go through some changes. We had to recognize that there were problems in what we were doing. What we thought people were doing during tornado warnings is not actually what most people were doing. So we had to rethink our strategy, and I'm just going to kind of talk off the cuff here. I got a couple slides, but I'm not a big slide person. But I will say that we had to make some changes, and we had to make some hard changes. We had to recognize what was happening. We had to, as meteorologists, we always sit in buildings that look like this, and we sit in big rooms that look like this, and we all talk to each other, but we weren't doing the right things. We weren't going out and talking to folks like you. Okay? And I consider you guys that are here to be sort of the smarter, the more weather-savvy folks. We weren't talking to the ordinary folks. Okay? So we had to do some rethinking, and we had to recognize what was happening and what do we need to do different to save people's lives. Okay? And I'll let James talk after lunch, and I'm sure he's going to talk about the fact that, you know, over 300 people died in the year 2011. You think with all the technology and all the advances that we've made in science that surely to goodness we can save everyone. Okay? Turned out obviously we had to learn a hard lesson. Look, this past week on Wednesday night we had to take another lesson because again the weather runs us, we don't run it, okay? Mother Nature always ends up winning in the end, and we have to, on a certain level, understand that and realize that we're going to make some mistakes from time to time. We hope not to, but we're going to. So, one thing that we did is we paired up with psychologists. I often thought about, is it better sometimes if we're going to try to save people's lives as meteorologists if we don't have at least another degree in psychology, because people do crazy things. People like to feel safe. We talk about April 27th, and everybody likes to talk about the Tuscaloosa Tornado because it's the one that was most filmed, probably the most filmed and most photographed tornado in history. Okay? We all know about Cordova. We all know about Hackleburg and Phil Campbell. Let me tell you about the little tornado that was down south, the EF4 that hit Lake Martin in Tallapoosa County. Okay? That tornado was on the ground for some 60 miles. It was a little bit different than all the other tornadoes from that day because it was one of the last ones of the evening. Happened after dark, 9 o'clock. And there's a lady single mom, 2 small kids. She's seen all the things that have happened all day. I mean, the footage of the tornado outbreak went national. CNN, Fox News, the Weather Channel, everybody was covering the tornado from one perspective or another. So there she was at home. It's 8:30. The sun had gone down, and things change when the sun goes down. Your psychology starts to change, that you can't see anymore. Everybody's scared of the dark. We know that. She sits at home, and she has seen all this, and now it's her turn. The tornado warning was excellent. Okay, 60 minutes of lead time. You have time to go out and go shopping before the tornado gets there. You have time to do anything for 60 minutes. She's seen everything that had happened all day. She's scared. What do people do when they're scared? Something happens to their brains when they get scared. And I've learned this through psychologists. And this is something that we as human beings have to sort of get over in ourselves. What does she do? She packs up. She's a single mom. She's in a mobile home. She packs up her 2 kids, and she goes where? Where does she go? Where do you go when you're scared? Somebody said it. What did you say? No. I heard somebody over here say it. She went to Mama's house. Nothing's safer than Mama's house, right? Mama's got supper ready. She's got the biscuits on the table. She takes her and her 2 kids to Mama's house because it's safe. You know, Mama also lives in a mobile home, not that far away. But what she inadvertently does and what she doesn't realize is that her house, which is out of the path of the storm, she drives right into the path of the storm because Mama's house is in the path of that storm. So in her mind, to be safe, she decides to go to Mama's house. The grandmother, her mom, the grandmother, she drove a school bus for a living. They found that school bus at the bottom of Lake Martin. That's how violent that tornado was. Okay, the 2 kids actually survived, but Mom and the grandmother didn't survive. So this happened, these kind of stories happen over and over and over again on April 27th. And the question is why? Because in our minds, we decide to do something that's not safe to feel safe. Okay? Another good example is you in your car. And Brian touched on it earlier. If you're in your car and it's inevitable that you're going to be hit by a tornado, what do you need to do? Okay. If you're in a mobile home, how many people in here live or know somebody who lives in a mobile home? Okay. Raise your hands. If you know or live or know someone who lives in a mobile home, look around you. Look how many hands are up. Okay. In this state, we have a lot of mobile homes. We tell people what? What if you're in a mobile home to do what? Okay. Let me ask you a question. Especially if it's dark. I'm asking you to get out of your mobile home and go lay outside in a ditch, in a low-lying area. How many people with a storm coming that's inbound that's going to impact you are going to be able to get out of your lazy boy rocker? You're watching TV. How many people are going to actually be able to get outside, go outside in the elements and lay in a ditch, especially if it's dark? Are you going to be able to physically make yourself go do that? And these are the kind of things that we have to study now. Okay, it's no longer about tornadoes and the weather. We have to study how people, or if they're going to take action. And I could cite you examples of meteorologists love to tell old war stories. I could cite you examples forever. Now I want to talk about what the polygons, and let's talk a little bit about polygonology. This is part of the changes that we're going to have to make. It's going to take time, it's going to take money, but we're going to have to talk about this. Here are all the warnings from April 27th. Look at all of these polygons. Are you kidding me? Look at this. This goes on for miles, for states. Goes on forever. Here's all of them in one thing, in one image, all put together. What we're going to try to do as an office, and what I think we're showing some success at least thus far, is trying to reduce the number of false alarms. In other words, the psychologist would tell you that if you're warned many times and many times over, eventually you stop being warned anymore. Okay? You get numb to the idea. How many people in here have a weather radio? Okay? Right, look around you. Again, hold your hands up if you have a weather radio. Look around you. This is the weather-savvy community. Okay? I wish it was like this for the entire state. It's not. We've given a lot of these out. Okay? These things are like your smoke alarms. They will go off in the middle of the night. They will wake you up and prompt you to do something. Okay. Another thing about psychology. Let's go back to the psychology again. When the weather radio goes off, what do you do? If it wakes you up, after you get over being scared, you take the little clicker and you turn what on? Every time, right? So we're starting to learn what people actually do. You don't go to your safe place when the weather radios go off. You turn on the television. You know you do. Okay? And it's fine. Look, and we laugh, and it's fun, and it's funny, but that's what we have to understand, is what people are actually doing when these things are happening, because all this ties into the warning process and what we have to deal with at the National Weather Service. So without you taking a hammer and hitting it because it's gone off 5 times in one night, there's some things we need to understand. Take this storm for here, and this is an example from January 23rd, 2012. This was the night of the Maplesville Tornado. It was also the night of the Jefferson County Clay Centerville Tornado. Anybody remember that one? Oh, middle of the night, right? This is the middle of the night. So when we issue a warning like this, that looks like this, look how many counties we cover. We cover Bibb, Chilton, Dallas, Perry, Hale. By the way, as a meteorologist, you have to know your geography very well. Every barbecue joint, every county. You've got to know them all. Doesn't matter. The problem is that with the older technology, the weather radios that we have now, all the weather radios in all of these counties are going off. Okay? When the storm moves halfway through the polygon, it's time to reissue for the people who are downstream, and there's definitely a tornado associated with this, no doubt about it. A very large one, a very destructive one, one that's going to be on the ground for a long time. We have to issue a new warning, and look, the weather radios in the middle of the night go off again for everybody. Not to mention, a few hours before this happened, we also had a tornado watch, and the weather radios went off for that. So now, in the middle of the night, you got to get up and go to work the next morning. This thing has already gone off 3 times. So even though we have a tornado in progress, the weather radio has gone off 3 times. What just so happens with this storm, let me back up. Although only this little area right here was impacted by the actual storm itself, all of these areas got alerted. So this is a problem that we started running into with people's brains. Remember, it just so happens that the most populated towns in this part of the world are not within this storm path. Uniontown, Selma, even Centerville is outside of the path of the storm. So those folks, their weather radios have gone off all night. What is their perception of what's really happening out there? So even though we have a real live storm, a real live tornado, no injuries, thank goodness, with this. But what is their perception of what's happening? And that's what we had to start changing, is how we view this and how we deal with this. Because we don't have all the money in the world, we can't change the technology. The technology already exists. Okay, we're working on some of that, but it's going to take a while. We've still alerted all of these areas, even though they've only been impacted by a little piece has impacted the storm has only impacted a little piece of the entire puzzle here, who have been alerted multiple times in the middle of the night. So these are the kind of things we're going to change. Something that I've been working on here lately is, instead of alerting all these areas multiple times, we don't have a choice, we're going to have to alert all these areas at some point, I decided to cut the polygons back. This is called Polygon Ology. So we'll cut the polygons and make them fit into these nice pieces of puzzle. I'd have loved to have been around when they decided to design the counties in Alabama. Who knows? Does anybody in here have any idea why this little piece of Dallas County happens to stick all the way up like this? Anybody have any idea? I have no idea. Okay. Yeah, probably. Somebody wanted the tax base from Mulberry Creek. I'm sure there's a lot of people who live on it. So anyways, we want to cut back these things, and as the storm moves along, okay, and we want to reissue, then we can reissue this, and that way we're only going to alert you hopefully one time, even though the storm is there and it's destructive. That way people don't end up throwing their weather radios in the trash, because we haven't served our purpose if we do that. So this is sort of the things we've been working on at our office. That way the weather radios hopefully only go off one time instead of multiple times to the middle of the night. Okay. That is polygonology. I know people are hungry, so I want to talk to you about one more thing and then we'll go eat. 11:30, is that good?
As long as you want.
Okay. I'm going to say that. Another big thing that we have been doing at our office is trying to reduce that false alarm rate. I thought we were making some mistakes, and I don't want to come up here and air out dirty laundry, but at some point you have to start talking about these things if you're going to fix them. All right? We have gone on a mission, a crusade. We have led a crusade to try to reduce the number of false alarms. I don't think we're there. We're not where we want to be, but I think we've improved significantly through the years. To the point now, I think it's important to say, and again, this message may not be for you, but it may be for someone that you love and someone you care about, is that when we issue a warning at this point, you better take it serious. Okay? For years, decades, we were just like any other office in the country. And that is, the false alarm rates were about 80%, which means you had an 8 out of 10 chance of not being impacted by a storm or impacted by an actual tornado when we issued a tornado warning. Okay? We have dramatically reduced that to the point now where I feel comfortable in having to reteach folks that when we issue a tornado warning now, you better take it serious. How serious? Well, 2015 and 2016, I should say, so far this year, has been our best year ever. Anybody want to venture a guess? So it's hard enough to issue tornado warnings because, in general, Brian talked about supercells, rotating thunderstorms. Do you have any idea how many tornadoes actually come from rotating thunderstorms? It only happens about 10% of the time, maybe 15%, okay? So you're already starting with an 85% false alarm rates if you just issue a tornado warning on every rotating thunderstorm. So, hence, we were about 80%. Made sense to me. Anybody want to venture a guess as to what our false alarm rate is so far for 2016? We were at 80%, had been at 80% for years. 2016 is our best year yet. Anybody want to venture a guess?
40%, 12%, 15%.
Yeah. We're now sitting at under 20% false alarm rate. Under 20%. Tell your friends, because now you have an 8 out of 10 chance of being impacted by an actual tornado. Okay? We've completely reversed the number now. Before, it was an 80% likelihood that you weren't going to be impacted. Now, there's only a 20% chance that you're going to not be impacted. Okay? So think about what we've done. We've actually reversed that number. So we have to actually go on a re-education campaign to teach people, hey, you better take this stuff serious. You better wake up and realize what's happening here, because now you are in imminent danger especially if there's a warning out. We're not going to catch them all. There's definitely going to be some smaller ones, hopefully, some smaller ones that we do miss from time to time. Those kind of things are happening. Weather always surprises us. Last Wednesday is a perfect example of that. We're always going to be surprised by something that's out of the ordinary, something that we can't control. Again, we don't run the weather. The weather runs us. Let's just face it. That's the way we have to view this. So that's what some things we're doing at our office. Hopefully you can get something out of that. And please talk to your neighbors and your friends and your family, especially those who live in mobile homes, that they've got to take this serious. We've got to save your life. It will save your life if you take the correct action. Talk to them about what the correct action is to take. Okay? Help them understand that their brain is going to tell them that they want to be safe because you like to surround yourself with something and some familiar objects. Even in your car, sometimes you feel safe. It's a big, bad world out there. You don't want to go out in it, okay? But it will save your life. So anyways, I hope you got something out of that. Thank you for having me.
Hey, hang on. Hey, anybody have any questions for Kevin? Anything about the National Weather Service? Sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead.
The dramatic reduction that you mentioned, is that nationwide or is that for Alabama?
He asked, is the dramatic reduction nationwide or is it just Alabama? I would like to consider our office to be a test site or test bed for things that we can do across the nation. You got to remember, the National Weather Service has 122 offices. The folks in Anchorage, Alaska office doesn't necessarily care about what Birmingham's doing, but yes, we've gone on a campaign. It really started with 4 offices. It started with Jackson, Huntsville, Memphis, and our office, sort of that I-20, I-40 alley right there that you all are familiar with. It's almost like the Southeast Dixie Alley, I think some people refer to it. So we're now on a team with Central Region as well, which is the Midwest and the Plains states, that we're working and incorporating some of this. But it's slow. It's a slow process, okay? You got to think of it as a process and not just an overnight fix. So, you know, it's complicated, but yes, we are applying some of these principles nationwide, and we certainly will. And incidentally, let me ask you this question. So before we started this big campaign, anybody want to venture again? I looked at all the data. As a scientist, we love numbers, right? We love crunching numbers. Anybody want to venture a guess as to how many warnings that Alabama and Mississippi had between the years 2007 leading up to April 27, 2011? So roughly about a 5-year period. And remember, the National Weather Service and your weather radio tells you to take action when we issue a warning. Anybody want to venture a guess as to how many warnings those 2 states had in a 5-year period? 4,002. People, you're not even close. 22,000 warnings for those 2 states. 22,000 warnings. Okay? Which means we were actually asking people to take action 22,000 times in a 5-year period. I don't know about you. Maybe the first time, the second time, by 22,000, I don't even hear you anymore. How many people in here have four kids? Anybody have 4 kids? Yeah. By the 4th one, you don't even hear them anymore, right? Exactly. That's what I akin it to. One ear and out the other. Hey, go ahead.
My daughter works for a vortex southeast of Huntsville, and Tuesday, about 4 or 5 weeks ago, we live in Indian Springs. Her phone call to us beat you guys by 3 or 4 minutes. Now the tornado had already lifted off the ground, and she told us she called us because she knows about the polygonology and your changes. But I know as a scientist, you had to decide on a certain false negative rate.
Yes.
False negative meaning you don't warn me, and yet a tornado happens.
Okay.
And so I'm not being warned. So I'm kind of curious what you guys decided was the risk you were willing to take of not warning us. We don't take cover because we don't know. I mean, we're under a watch, of course. What as scientists you decided was the percentage rate you were willing to go with that you don't warn me, and yet I get hit.
Right. Right now, we have shown some improvement on that percentage. That percentage nationwide, and our average was about 71%. So it means we missed probably about 29%. We've actually increased that now to where it's probably closer to about 75. Okay, we're not going to catch them all. It's going to be impossible. There's things we just can't see. But what I need you to understand about the warning process, and what's the most difficult thing to probably people to grasp, is that it's more involved than just looking at the radar. The environment has to be favorable. So there's a lot of elements that we begin to weigh into that decision-making process. I think some of the mistakes that we're making before is that one is when you have marginal days. Almost 95% of our days are marginal. A lot of times what happens would be that people would err on the side of not wanting to miss anything. Okay, so we would blanket the entire state with warnings, okay? Because people are a little bit nervous, especially young meteorologists, right? You're young, you're new in your career, and we went through a lot of turnover, we had a lot of new people, and they were a little bit nervous, me included at times, about missing something, okay? Point is, we were missing the 30% anyway, okay? So it wasn't really solving what we wanted to solve. But yes, there are going to be times that we miss, okay? And there are just things as a scientist and as a warning forecaster you want to weigh to make the best decision possible without overwarning people to death. And I think we're trying to find that happy balance. And at times, you're right, the pendulum does swing too far to where we don't want to create too many false alarms, but at times I feel like the pendulum did swing back and forth. 2013 was a great example of that. I thought there were several events in 2013 that we should have had warnings on. The pendulum had swung too far. We needed to bring it back closer to the center. But we're always going to try to find and be very conscious of not over-warning people. That has to be part of it. Okay. Outside of being in a mobile home, most EF0s and EF1s you're going to survive, okay, if you get to an interior room, okay? It's not going to be catastrophic like some of the things in some of the pictures that people like to show. So we also have to recognize that. So there's a lot of things that we need to improve on our skill, and I think that's one of the things. So, yes. Anybody else? Yes.
I did something similar to what you talked about on a master's level mental health therapist, and I did research in DeKalb County.
Okay.
With their survivors of the April 27th tornado. Jason Simpson was an amazing help in working with that population. And some of our research and interviewing found that people did not have multiple levels of warnings. The cell towers and no weather radios were knocked out early that day. They had several people tell me they were having to run back and forth to their cars because the radio was their only way to get information. So that's one of the things we noted. Another issue was a lot of people don't know where they live.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know where their house is, their church, their school, and they don't understand that if something to their west is under a warning, that should be a heads up. And that can help with, go ahead and preparing if you're in a mobile home that you go as well. And if you'd like to talk more, I've got a lot more information. But those are the two things that really stood out on why so many people did not get the warning that day.
Sure. Well, yeah, and I'd like to, but you're exactly right. So what was your master's in again? I'm sorry.
It's in clinical counseling.
Okay.
Trauma recovery therapy along with the research.
Like I said, our science has to meet with folks like her, okay? Clinical counseling. This is the kind of information that we were missing, and I think we all were. James, you would probably agree that we were all missing as scientists. We only see things from a certain perspective. We weren't really understanding that people don't know where they live. They don't know where they live. In fact, and I'll give Brian this hint for the next storm spotter classes next spring, I always put a map of Alabama without the county names on it because I want to see people who can pick out where they are on a map, because you would be surprised how many people actually do not know where they live and can't get information. Now, April 27th was a unique situation. Infrastructure early got knocked out. People couldn't get the messaging, okay? The question is, even when it's not knocked out and you can get the messaging, what are you doing with that? Are you doing the right things? Are you doing anything, okay? So those are the kind of questions that we need to start asking ourselves. And look, it's going to be a long time before we have all the answers. We may never not have all the answers. But we're going to certainly lose all our hair trying, right? Absolutely. No doubt about it. Anything else? And I'll let we can go eat. Yes, one more.
On April 27th, there were so many tornadoes going on that day that it was difficult to cover, each one step by step as it was hitting certain cities. And I live in Gardendale, and as you know, the one that came up from Tuscaloosa hit Fultondale. We didn't realize how close it was until we heard it.
Right.
And is there any way to improve coverage on multiple situations? That way, people that are in the path of the tornado that's happening out here, but you're covering one that's here, is there any way to improve notifying people that how close they are?
Yes. In fact, there is a new program out there, and it's going to be a while. Like anything else that the government runs, it's going to take time and some more money, but there are new warning technologies out there that's really associated with people's phones. Almost everybody has one of these now. Hold it up if you have one. You have one? Everybody has one of these. And they're actually working on, yes. Yeah, that was not me. They actually are working on this situation here where if you live in the path of this tornado, it's actually going to tell you the distance that you are away from it, okay, or the percentage that you have of being impacted. So as time goes on and new images, say, from a radar like this come in, if you lived in Jemison up here, and as the storm gets closer, it's actually going to be telling you on your phone where it's at and how close it is and where you're at, more importantly. So yes, it's going to be a while. Hopefully it's in my career at some point, but we are going to transition from this old technology, which still works, to something new and innovative just like that. So yes.
Yes, I'm just thinking, a lot of people travel and they don't know exactly where they are when
Right.
they're traveling.
Yes, what we're talking about is people not knowing where they are again and how close the danger is to them. And those kind of things are going to have to change if we're going to save everybody, and that is our goal. Again, thank you very much.